welcome along to Destination Wellbeing. My guest this afternoon is Michelle McKeever. Michelle, you're very welcome to Destination Wellbeing.
Thank you very much.
And just a reminder, viewers, before we begin, that if they have any concerns about their health or wellbeing, particularly we're going to be talking about children today, so your first protocol is always your GP, and then there are lots of other alternatives and options out there that you can maybe pursue and have a look at that'll support whatever you need to do for your children through the health service and through your GP. So Michelle, we're on such a journey. We're both very excited, I know, about the upcoming seminar from the Family Hope Centre on childbearing development in Uri. But your journey with the Family Hope Centre began really 2.5 years ago when so take us back to that and tell us a little bit more about how your journey's evolved with the Family Hope Centre and just where things have went, the journey that you've been on over the last 2 years, I suppose.
I suppose, well, Ronan now is 5. He was diagnosed at 3.5 with autism, but and that was only, I suppose, 1.5 years ago. But prior to that, we were in a very, very scary place. Our child was different and it was showing signs of all sorts, but we really didn't know what it was at that time. I didn't know anything about autism. I didn't know anything about brain development or anything. I could just see my little boy that just didn't seem to want any type of love or any type of compassion, or just was lost in his own little world. And as a parent, it's extremely scary place to be, because the first instance to have is your child cries, you want to comfort them. Ronan didn't like comfort, he didn't like any type of affection. So it was extremely challenging and very, very hard to accept. I felt a complete and utter failure as a parent, and I really didn't know what to do, and we were in that lost zone, I suppose you could call it, for some parents, between this stage of development and getting an actual diagnosis. We didn't know at the time that with a diagnosis, a lot of help and support comes with that, but I suppose the one thing I was working towards was, I didn't particularly think a diagnosis was going to make my life any better. I just, I said, what is it?
It was resistant. There's a certain, and there's that normal, I suppose that fear that people have as well. What can it change? It's not going to change anything, even just because we know what it is. But as you say, it's then realising that maybe with the diagnosis comes the additional support
that you're lacking with at that time. But
there's a transition period that before that the signs are being shown, but there's no diagnosis, and it's limbo.
It's limbo. It's a state of limbo.
What can be done? But yet you're dealing with a child who's not sleeping, who doesn't want social contact, who's having meltdowns, who's lost, and the stress and the strain.
The stress and the strain in family life becomes unbearable, and you do feel completely and utterly isolated, and you do tend to hide a lot of it because you are, in a sense, in denial of what's actually happening, but also fear of a journey that you're not ready to take on, a lifelong journey that you have to have acceptance to, this is a different way of life that we're going to have. So it is, in a sense, a bit of denial, but that's, I suppose, where our paths crossed with the reflexology. Ronan,
kind of as a first.
Yeah.
It was sort of, right, okay, a child's not sleeping. So I suppose what we did together was maybe tackle some of the problems rather than, we didn't necessarily at that stage, because we were waiting on the diagnosis, but we still knew that, okay, Ronan's not sleeping at night. Okay, well, reflexology might help him to sleep, so we'll check that box kind of thing. It was kind of going through. The symptoms were the problem at that stage rather than really anything else. And
I suppose
we checked that one fairly quickly.
I really thought of, if I just get a night's sleep, this will all be better, everything can fall into place. But so through the reflexology, he started sleeping, and now he sleeps 10 hours a night, where he went from 2 hours of sleeping and 2 hours prior to that of just chaos in our house. So that in itself proved to me that, okay, there's something here in this that, I could look outside of the box or outside of the general norm to help him. So after that, you've seen the...
Yeah, I mean, obviously I still remember that day walking into and picking up, it was a new reporter at the time, and picking up the paper and deciding, because for my journey at that stage had been that I was working increasingly more with children with special needs and seeing some challenges and different things, and I kind of caught me of child brain development, and I thought, okay, well, I need to know a bit about that and let's see, and maybe Michelle would like to go to that. And then we decided, so off we went on our on our journey,
On our road trip.
yeah, a road trip on a Saturday morning. And
Yeah.
again, I think what struck me about it is that it's one of those. It was definitely one of those meant to be things. The day suited both of us. I don't know
It
how
all
many
just
other
worked out.
things we decided maybe we'll do this today. And no, that doesn't suit me. Does that suit you? So we went off anyway, and we arrived into the City West
Yeah.
to meet a room full of people, and they began.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose as well, I really didn't know what I was going to. Again, it was just something that I suppose thought this might be good for me or not. But well, give it a go. But all along this, I suppose we can call it a journey with Ronan. I kept asking doctors and health visitors, and what is there anything I can be doing, or what can I do? And I suppose, in fairness, they didn't really know either, because there was no official diagnosis, and it was just, so it was a constant struggle. And as a parent, not knowing how to actually deal with your child is an extremely scary place. So when I sat down for this seminar talk, the first thing that I heard was, how we were going to help your child. And then, all the questions that I had asked, all of a sudden I was getting all these answers.
And actually, probably more importantly, because I remember us talking about this, was how we're going to help you to help your child.
Yeah.
Was the key
key,
bit.
yeah.
It was how we're going to help your child, but actually how we're going to give you information that can help you to help your child. And that was, for me, that was the bit that stood out, that was different, because very often with anything in life, there's things changes. This child will change classrooms in school, they'll change maybe doctors, physios, those can all change, but you hope in most cases that the one constant in a child's life is their parents or their close family circle. So empowering them was, for me, ticked the box. I thought, okay, I like the sound of this.
Exactly. Matthew spoke very passionately, and that's what resonated with me. He talked about his own daughter and his own children and how they had coped with similar situation, and that came across very, very strongly to me, because it is very hard for somebody to understand when you're living at 24/7 how to deal with a child. So what he was saying, he was describing my life to me, and and he was explaining the different techniques and different things. Within that 4 hours, I took 4 things away with me that day, and it was purely on child development. It was purely on, how we were going to work towards getting our child well again. It was, the first thing was that he mentioned crawling to different parts of the brain, the smells for interaction, social and emotional skills, craniosacral therapy, and nutrition. And there were 4 things that I thought, well, they can't harm my child. It's not like giving him a pill and you're going to be okay. Like this, these were 4 general things that I thought, there's no harm in trying this.
Yeah.
But as well as that, I had broken down our lives into different sections, was thinking, first of all, it was just, if I can overcome the sleep, God, it'll be great. Then we overcame that. The next thing then was, God, if I could just get him to school or get him some sort of organisation. Whereas after listening to the talk, I didn't need to make those challenges, or goals in itself. The information that I got in those couple of hours, just those couple of hours, nothing else, €20 at the door, that information, I had enough to feel empowered as a parent to just take this, grasp this, and just run with it, and wherever it takes me, if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And in our sense, it worked.
Yeah, and you came away with exactly that hope.
Oh yeah.
Hope that there was something that could change. But what I suppose it's easy to talk about the 4, those 4 things that you take away. For me, but it was actually, it's much more important, first and foremost, to have the techniques that you can use, but also the understanding behind why they're important, because it's that drives it forward. It's okay, it's okay to tell, even in a parent case, it's okay, let's talk about tummy time and why that's important. But it's the understanding of actually how it impacts on the brain. So it's the development of the brain that allows it to really become quite different. And that in that space, there was a pretty good understanding. Obviously, neurologists is a huge, complex area. But there was a simple, basic layman's understanding of this part does this bit does that, that's what you help. And that's what you need to do to get that bit working. If this is your problem, try this. This might help. And as you said, there was none of it was going to do any harm.
No,
it was only going to help.
It was only going to help. And the bits and pieces that I took back, you know, when I was going home and telling my husband, and I was so excited about it, he even understood, you know, it was explained in such a simple format that you was nearly like, oh, come on now, this isn't that easy, like, you know, is it really, like, but it was, and, you know, he delivered his presentation so well, and so much of it went in, like, I didn't take one note, but every note was in my brain.
Exactly, yeah.
That we completely changed our lives then in a way that, you know, to make this work, we put all our effort into it. You know, as I said, the importance of crawling, you know, for any stage of development, we learned that from those 4 hours, and we implemented that round the house. We didn't wait. I know that there was a 3-day seminar after that we attended, but we already had started all the groundwork. And
I remember visiting Michelle's house one evening, and everybody had to crawl down the hall because it had been freeing to make it work. But and one thing that struck me when Matthew spoke, actually, one of the quotes that I took away from that day was, "This is hard work, but hands up who's not working hard anyway."
Oh, yeah.
So it was effort, and it was hard work, and it required time, and it required dedication, but prior to that you were crisis managing. Prior to that you were going from one difficult situation into the other, plus you had the heartbreak of no social interaction from your son, no love, no compassion, no
nothing,
just the blankness of
yeah, he was I would nearly describe it as like he was in a little cocoon, and I just kept thinking, you know, God, if I could just get into him, you know, and get him, you know, just if I could just one wee sliver of, you know, hope that I could break that little shell, and we did.
Yeah,
you know, through that, we they recommended craniosacral therapy, which, you know, straight away when we came back, I think I talked to you about getting a therapist now. So we used.
And it's funny again how things had linked in, because I think we talked about that previously. But again, the key difference between us kind of briefly mentioning it and talking about it was the understanding and the explanation as to why it worked and why it made a difference. Because it wasn't just this might be an idea, it was a specific, this is how this works and this is why it works, which was information. Whilst I kind of knew it might help, I didn't have the full information or the understanding as to why it would help or how that could work, so obviously couldn't share that.
No, it became nearly a plan of action. It wasn't, it was no longer a trial and error. It was like, okay, this is proven to work and we're going to go with this, and we're going to, you know, whatever they've explained or sent across, but, you know, they were going to try this. So the first thing we did was the craniosacral therapy, and it was fantastic. It was a lot of crying, a lot of frustration he was getting out at the time, but probably after the second or third session you could see him opening up. You could see him, it was nearly like he'd seen me for the first time. He looked back at me and it was like, my God, you're my mommy, you know, and that was, to me, was priceless, that moment. And from then on, it's been a work in progress that, you know, we went from, I suppose, and you can say, and from the very, very beginning of zero tolerance towards us, zero contact. We could have been anywhere, we could have flew to the moon and back, and he wouldn't have bothered him. Whereas now I can't leave the front door without him standing at the door looking at me going, where are you going, Mommy? He's nearly at me hip. Which most parents would probably be complaining about. I absolutely love. So it's to me that if I do nothing more on the Family Hope programme, I've got my little boy back, and that is worth anything.
And those things, you know, I think it's easy for us to talk about the increase in autism and the difficulties that can come with that, and or, you know, it's kind of bad, the child has autism, and it sort of stops at that, because the label doesn't actually explain what a family or a parent is going through on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't even scratch, you know, it's easy. Even now, and I mean, I would know your experience with Ronan, but to have you say those words, there's emotion in me, you know, listening to them, because, and I know not just Ronan's story, but the experience of some parents with autism as well. But as I say, you know, it's easy to put a label on. It's easy to say, well, it's autism or it's cerebral palsy or it's whatever it is. But the day-to-day living with that is a very different experience.
Completely. Like, as I say, whenever we went to the seminar, Ronan had no diagnosis. So it was great for me, because all of a sudden then I was getting information and I was piecing it together, and I was understanding, and I was, I suppose, becoming more confident in myself, and stop beating yourself up over it. You know, we're going to help you here. But I suppose the day that he did get diagnosed, like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm not going to lie. I was floored. And
we were together. We met for lunch after. I had known, but I suppose when you get that label, that's it. And I suppose
looking back, if I hadn't have been in contact with the Lakes Family Hope Centre at the time, there would have probably been a lot of acceptance. Well, that's it then. This is it. This is our lives. But whereas, you know, I had my rough time. I had a week.
But we were already able to see.
Yeah, but I brushed myself off and said, okay, fair enough.
Now we know what we're dealing
now
with.
I know what I'm dealing with. Let's do this. Bring it on, type thing.
And what struck me that day, which was, I think, devastating for both of us, because whilst we met, I mean, I didn't even think I knew what was happening that day. We'd arranged to meet for lunch, and we met for lunch, and without knowing that Ronan had just had his diagnosis, he was in a restaurant with us having lunch. He was. We were in a place that probably never would have been envisaged. You know, we sat, we had lunch, and he was with us, and that was
one of my biggest
that
challenges.
That was the day of his diagnosis, and yet 6 months previously that just would not have been.
No, 6 months prior to that, he wouldn't have sat in the car with me. He would have sat in it, but as soon as I entered the 30-mile limit of a town, or Newry Cross, wherever I was going, it was complete and utter meltdown. I seen me crossing the road with him one day, trying to get him into the car, and he just lay in the middle of the road, hitting his head of the ground with sheer frustration and anxiety and panic, and you know,
sensory overload.
Total sensory overload. Whereas here we were, and I think that's what floored me the most, that I had seen him progress with what we were doing, and yet and all, we were sitting in the room and I was given the diagnosis. Yes, I know he's a long journey ahead and more work to do, but I suppose it was nearly like a thump in the stomach, like, okay, we're not there yet, and I suppose I thought I was further on than I was. But
the understanding coming that diagnosis was based on assessments that had happened, not just on the day, but over a previous time. So, but in the moment, that's not what's clear.
No,
it's the realisation that you could see how far things had changed.
And I think that just as a parent, you know, that was my own feeling on the day. But as I said, I didn't let it consume me, and I just said to myself, it's just, you know, we agreed that, you know, fair enough, he's got a diagnosis, but that doesn't have to define his life, or that doesn't have to define our lives. You know, we want to make this work in progress, you know, whether it takes us 12 months, whether it takes us 12 years, you know, we're working towards helping him to just having a social life, having...
To achieve the most of his ability, the best of his ability, because that's what it's always, I mean, that's what it's always about, and helping him to reach his full potential really is the key thing. And
that's our goal,
And so then fast forward, so we'd all the excitement of that, and then we decided last year that we'd run the Children's Wellbeing Seminar, and I know Kelly Watson came in and chatted to us about that last year before we were doing the Children's Wellbeing Seminar, and we, you know, great response from that, so sowed a few seeds, and now you know, and everybody was kind of like, okay, well, what else is out there? And now 12 months on, we're on the verge of the Family Hope Centre not just coming back to Ireland, but coming to Newry on the 23rd of April in the Canal Court at 7 p.m.
Half 6.
Half 6. Well, it's definitely worth being there at 6:30, because there's a lot of information, and there's time for questions and answers and stuff and that. So, and there's also an event happening in Kilkenny.
The day before, the 22nd.
On the 22nd of April, Kilkenny, and the 23rd of April in Newry, which is a fantastic opportunity for the people of Newry to come out. I mean, I know there's so many organisations, and whilst we've talked about Ronan's experience with autism, but it's cerebral palsy, it's really any brain hurt, and to go along. Anybody that has an interest in children, I come out from the first seminar thinking anybody that has a child, as soon as there's a positive pregnancy test, this information on brain development, with or without a problem, because obviously how the child's brain develops is pretty crucial to how they're going to be. And I come out with so much information that day that I just thought, you know, everybody really needs to have this, to understand the basics, because 2.5 hours, there's a lot covered, but it's not particularly overwhelming in any shape.
And it's a really, you know, interesting topic as well. Like, my life was completely different 2 years ago. There's no way I would have been sitting here, you know, having this conversation. But, you know, I suppose my driving force behind it, and especially with coming to Newry, I'm so passionate about that, is because I want other parents of kids, not just like Ronan, but all kids, to, if they could come to the likes of this, that it would help them and bring them on, because I know that we've changed, and it has brought so much joy into our lives, that all I want is for other parents to see, you know, like, there's so much more out there.
And that change happened in the very early stages. Came away, that change began from the weekend after when we walked out of the seminar. So, and you had enough in that.
I had enough in those couple of hours basically to take away and just, you know, different ideas, different focus, just raising your awareness.
And even on that level, in those couple of hours that I was there, I took away enough information that I've since shared and passed on to other parents who've implemented it, who are, you know, a couple of stages down in terms of the dilution of that information. But what struck me was these are things that can be done. They can be done in the family, in the home. They do take time, they do take effort, they take commitment, but they're doable. They work. And as I say, it's across that broad spectrum, because I know the Family Hope Centre is on brain development, so that's whether there's an ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, speech and language delay, an autism diagnosis, cerebral palsy. So there's such it's such a broad spectrum.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about it as well, because it wasn't autism driven. It was driven as child development, brain development, you know, and that's what I liked. It, you know, fell under an umbrella of so many other different things. And you know, when you can break down your actual child's development, you can understand the little concepts, and so the importance of every stage and moving on became huge. You know,
it's that thing of, okay, what are the problems? Back to, I suppose, where we'd started with the reflexology was, right, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? Right, we want to help him to sleep. Okay, so that's what we work on. We work on the sleep. So the next bit is we need to work on his language, so we need to do that. His social connection, so we need to do that. And it's broken down into each of those stages with a plan to support each one, really. And the overall picture becomes less relevant because you're working on each bit.
It just became less overwhelming and more focused and driven. That's what I would say. And as well as that, the days that you have and you go, God, why am I doing this? You still have that knowledge inside. You go, and empowerment, I suppose that would be the big thing for me, is because I felt powerless as a parent, and you nearly felt that you were handing over your child's development to external people, you know, therapists or doctors, nurses. You were waiting on somebody else's opinion.
But it can only be maybe 1 hour a week or 1 hour a month, or depending on what resources are available and stuff like that. Whereas this was stuff that you as a family,
I felt better in me thinking, right, this is me doing it.
There's not 1 hour in a week.
There's not 1 hour, and the more I do, the better it is. But again, it's that power back, is, you know, taking control of your life, taking control of your child.
And then accessing whatever other additional support may be there to complement that as well. You know, if it's speech therapy, if it's OT, if it's whatever else, the support from school or whatever else comes with that.
Don't become reliant on external, but you know,
you're doing
and it works hand in hand.
And you understand that. Well, Michelle, thanks a million for joining me today and for sharing that story. As I say, it's not till you maybe sit down and look back on the journey and look at how far how much things have changed, that you realise actually how far you have come. And certainly sitting here, as you said earlier, that you wouldn't, 2 years ago you wouldn't have been sitting here. So it's been a journey, for both of us, for the whole family, as well. So, but thanks a million, as I said, for coming in and for the passion in terms of spreading the word. And really, for anybody that would like more information, the Family Hope Centre Ireland page on Facebook is a really good place to look at for that. And please do, tickets are available through Eventbrite. So if you Google Family Hope Centre on event, or search Family Hope Centre on Eventbrite, you'll be able to pick up tickets there. And it's the Canal Court. The Newry one is obviously the Canal Court Hotel on Thursday the 23rd of April. I don't know why I'm mixing up with those dates. Thursday the 23rd of April at 6:30 p.m. And the Kilkenny event is on the evening before, the 22nd, Wednesday the 22nd, again at 6:30, I'm guessing, in Kilkenny. But both those tickets are available for both those events on the website. And definitely anybody that's involved, whether it's a parent, a teacher, an early years worker, a classroom assistant, one-to-one, whatever route or whatever access you have to children, or whatever way you're supporting children in your daily life, this will definitely add, with or without problems, because that was my key thing.
Exactly,
perfect, and not say brilliant if there are problems, perfect for anybody that has a child with development delay in any way, shape or form, but just really great information.
For parenting in general.
Because if we can understand the brain, we can understand an awful lot of other things as well.
Exactly.
So, but thanks a million for joining me today, and to our viewers for watching in. And I'll be in again with Rowan and on the morning show, and you'll hear me chatting a bit about this over the next few weeks. So do stay tuned, and if you have any questions at all, both Michelle and I can be accessed through Facebook as well.
Advertise your business here. Reach a weekly audience of 275,000 people. Be ahead of the rest. Call Damien on 078 08 80 34 75 or 028 308 34 012. So, you want local Newry and Mourne TV shows on your television? Which video box should you buy? Well, you have two options. Option 1 provides you as long as you have a good internet connection in your home with all the programmes from destinationnewry.com, including
inside the fencing when we were up there. That's such a change. And the dog muck.
Destination Newry. Radio evolved.
Hello, your weather for today and tomorrow with Destination Newry today.
First, this is Newry News Bite.
Well, what's crack in Newry and Mourne today? We all had a great September weather-wise.
We're going to go straight into today's show with a lively set of tunes from a band called Sun.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Destination Newry.
Tell me the provenance of that. Where did it come from?
Right there, and welcome back to the studio.
Good afternoon and welcome along to Destination Wellbeing. My guest is...
Hi everyone and welcome to this week's Newry's Loose Women with me.
Well, it's hello and welcome once again to the programme. My name is Tommy Sands.
In the courts of the house of our God, praise the Lord.
Philip Rogan, rather, wearing number 19.
Evening everybody, and you're very welcome to Newry Showgrounds tonight again.
So that's option 1, and to choose this, click on option 1 below, or you can go to value.ie and buy option 1. Option 2 provides you, as long as you have a good internet connection in your home, everything you get for option 1, including all the programmes from destinationnewry.com, plus you will be able to add over 1,000 private or public channels at the touch of a button, most of which are free. So that's option 2. To buy, click below and buy option 2, or go to vario.ie and buy option 2. To choose your option, either option 1 or 2, just click on the buttons below, or you can go to vario.ie and click on option 1 or 2. When we receive your payment, we will deliver your box to your home, and all you need to do is plug it in and connect it to your TV and your internet. Any problems? We're here on standby to help.